please call the roll.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder DePouy is excused. Mayor Moore.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 20th?
I also move.
Second. Any changes, corrections, additions?
No.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes carried. There are no appearances. There's no unfinished business. That takes us to 6A, consideration of resolution 25-11-2842, amending the 2025 operating budget for comprehensive planning consultant services.
Do you mind if I just explain the budget
Yep.
stuff before Doug gets up there? So the total contract is $109,675. It's broken up between the Broadway Corridor and the Monroe Drive plan, which is $57,570. The comp plan is the remaining $52,105. So looking at this and looked at where all the TIFs were. TIFs 4 and 5. We're past the expenditures date, so you can't add new cost to those, 5 and 6. 4 and 5, 6 through 17, which is 11 of them. You are allowed to allocate cost to those, and this meets that requirement. This meets that expenditure. So I recommend, my recommendation would use for those two plans to use each TIF divided equally, which would be $5,234 to each individual TIF. And the remaining, which would be the comp plan, $52,105. Kind of explain where the money originally came from. It was originally ARPA money. We didn't meet the spending period, so we did a transfer to the general fund, but it's under lost revenue, wasn't under it's under comp plan because it has to be considered lost revenue to go to the general fund. But it was earmarked for this. I've always tracked this. So it would come out of fund balance for this $52,105, which was back in 2024 what was intended for. This is for 25, this budget amendment. I think we'll have to put it into 26 too, so when we finish the final 26 budget, we'll have to make a notation that this is going to be in there. If approved. That's all I have.
Mark, I just said, so how much are we taking out here?
How much so it's a total of 57,570 overall, but we have 11 TIFs that we're able to break it down by, so if you divide the 57 by 11,
Okay.
it comes to be so each TIF will have a cost of $5,234
Okay.
each individual TIF.
Thank you.
You know, granted, it goes to some of them don't have like a lot of activity right now, but this is such a small dollar amount that we'll collect it within the next couple of years if needed.
Okay. Have a motion? Yeah.
There's actually 12 districts, not 11.
Is it?
Because it's 6 through 17 inclusive, so you count the 6 and the 17, so it's 12. So that would make the number
Wow, okay.
a little smaller, right?
Well, yeah, so I can revise that.
Yeah.
6,
No,
7,
it's not.
8, 9,
Anyway, I'll move approval.
Okay,
Yeah.
second. Given the budget amount, I assume we want a roll call on this.
Was Doug going to say anything about it?
I have nothing to add.
Oh, okay. So this is different than being a donor, though. This is, these TIFs can be used because they're either in the planning area.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or within the half-mile plan
Right.
area, so that's why we're using those. I mean, we could use the fund balance, but I thought this would be, these are all going to be related to what's going to happen in those TIFs anyways. So.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have any questions for Doug? Would you like to call the roll?
Excuse me. Alder Wood.
Aye.
Mayor Moore.
Aye. Okay, that resolution carries.
Thank you.
Takes us to 6B. Consideration of resolution 25-11-2838, amending the 2025 capital budget for Wisconsin Emergency Management State and Local Cybersecurity Grant.
Leah's available
He
too.
is available online to talk about this one.
Okay, Leah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Yes, this is we received a Wisconsin Emergency Management Cybersecurity Grant, which was applied for by Landtech, who are our IT consultants. We were awarded the grant for this year in the amount of $29,150. The grant was specifically for multi-factor authentication, and Landtech is planning to use the money to expand our multi-factor authentication to protect our network so that employees will have to use MFA to access our city networks and our accounting payroll software and possibly our website as well. So this is a full grant, no matching. We do have to spend the money first though and get reimbursement. So this is requesting that we use fund balance to purchase the authenticator software and tokens before we're reimbursed from the state.
Just one thing. Alderwood was correct. This morning with the email regarding it should be really operating capital. I ended up putting in a capital for the ease of the accounting so we could make sure that we could track a little bit better, but there is technically could be split between the operating cost and the capital cost, but since it was revenue neutral, because me and Leah kind of went back and forth, just for the accounting to make sure we have all the correct expenditures, and we weren't overinflating the operating budget too in the future years. So I put it in the capital, but if you want to, we can split it, but I think since it's revenue neutral, I'll just leave it in the capital.
Yeah, what caught my attention was more the idea that if you did it for 5 years and bought a license and tokens, that you could treat it as a capital expense. Is that?
Well, license I technically should in reality are supposed to be like a prepaid, so you prepay the full amount and each year it's 1/5 is deducted for each year. Technically, that's how it really should be set up.
It's what?
It should be allocated over 1/5, so it'd be like a prepaid expense over 5 years. But I think if we could just do 1 year for 5 years, I think we're okay.
Okay. So you want it in capital or operating?
Yeah, capital.
Okay. Because it does say operating too in the resolve clause. So
just need to.
Yeah, if they could amend that on
Yeah.
if somebody could amend that.
Yeah, that's.
And I think
Yeah,
the name is wrong too. Is that
Yeah,
indicated?
okay. Do we have a motion to
I'll move
approve?
approval.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. C, consideration of resolution 2511-2839, providing for the sale of 3.9 in general obligation refunding bonds, series 2025B.
Yes, so the next three is basically authorization for our financial advisor to start to go to the market with these three. So these are three. Two of them have to be refunded regardless, and one of them is more of a strategy, and I'll get to that once. The first one is sale for $3.9 million. What this was, back in 2021, we borrowed for Sam Damiano property. We took a short-term note out to complete the purchase. We've been making payments, principal and interest, over the years. And we also received money from Dane County of $2 million. So now the bond is up. It's due right away in 2026, so we have to refinance that now. It's kind of a good time right now. A little bit with the market. I mean, it's not the greatest either way with the market, but we have to refinance it. So this is just refinancing the San Damiano loan. Currently, just so you know, we're paying principal and interest of $324,000. The estimated principal and interest is roughly going to be $324,000. So the impact of the actual property tax levy over the years will be zero. I mean, what we've been currently paying for that way. The rates might be right now, just in general, the rates are a little high, but we also have a call date in there. So once the rates do come down, we're able to refinance into a lower interest rate once it becomes available, if it comes available. So basically, it's just we have to do it because the band is up, and we're going to a 3.9 refunding bond.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Takes us to D, the next one, consideration of resolution 2511-2840, providing for the sale of 1.55 million taxable general obligation refunding bond series 2025C.
So this one is actually not up to be refunded for any reason. The reason why I'm recommending this one is for a strategy for a donor district. So currently, this $1.5 million, it was originally borrowed for $3 million, is related to TIF 8, which is, I call it the old Tresta TIF, the old mobile home area. So we're paying it off. We could be paying it off in by 2029. But this is also a donor district to to TIF 9, which is the current TIF. And that actually, we had some large payments coming up here in the future years. And we like to I'd like to get more money over to that TIF to make sure we can make those principal payments and interest payments. If we didn't do it, we still would make them, but it does help us pay more over. Right now, if we don't refinance this, I don't know if over the next 4 years, the total amount we would donate to TIF 9 is $215,000, which is really not. I mean, it's worth it, but it's not really a lot of money over the next 4 years. But if we refinance this, the way the debt structure, we'll donate $1.5 million, which will help us some larger payments coming up in that TIF. Also with this TIF number 8, even if we do this, extend the principal and interest payments, we'd still be able to pay it off. And if we leave the TIF open to 2039, we accumulate over about $3.7 million worth of, I would say, fund balance, a total increment that we could use for some other projects. So, I mean, it's something to think about. We could use some of that money for the Broadway Street project that's coming up. And also there's a large Interlake stormwater project. It's in the 2027 budget. If we could move it back to 2030 or 2029, we could basically cover that in that TIF. So there is a little bit of strategy because it will still fund itself over life and still have, 3.7 even with this refinancing. So I think to get that extra money into TIF 9 is an advantage. That's what I would recommend doing.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, what, do we expect TIF 9 to not need donations in the future?
Once I think we won't need it, once we make these TIF payments, and with the BASA coming on and that comes on at the, which it will, we'll be able to cash flow it to the end.
Okay.
We have we have a couple large really payments coming due in that TIF. Instead of refinancing them and sending those payments out, this way we can get more money in there and pay those off quicker.
Right.
So that's kind of the advantage of that. If we don't, by 2029, if we pay it off, all the debt's paid off, technically, we're required to close the TIF too.
Right.
So that's the other side of it too.
Yeah,
It
no.
kind of it keeps it open a little bit longer so you can add more cost intervention.
Yeah,
So,
good foresight.
so.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Takes us to 6E, consideration of resolution 2511-2841, providing for the sale of 29.5 million for water system and sewer system revenue refunding bond series 2025D.
This is all again, two bands that we plan on refinancing in 2026 or 2025. So basically, both these bands were scheduled to be paid off, I think, February of 2026. So we have to refinance them. There's The remaining balance of the water is $1,385,000. The sewer is $1,415,000. There are some bond requirements that go into it to get to the $2,950,000. So these were some bands because of where we kind of structure our debt, and to keep the rates low, we kind of put them into these bands so they can kind of fall into the debt schedule, so we're not really jacking up the rates. So this is kind of putting them into their debt schedule, and this is what this is doing. But these do come due early here in February. But one caveat to this, revenue bonds get better interest rates when they're sold in larger quantities. And so they're looking at talking with S&P, who does our rating, and with our financial advisor. If we approve the capital budget tonight, I would look to include the water portion in this borrowing. So it makes it one big, instead of doing like another band next year right away, it just puts this all in one. So if I want to come back at the next meeting, just be aware this number is going to increase. But technically, until this is approved, they couldn't add that in there. Until the capital budget is approved.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Takes us to number F, 6F, consideration of resolution 2511-2843, adopting future compensation increases for the mayor and city council members of the city of Monona. Do you want me to speak to this?
If you'd like to, Mayor.
Sure. This is something that we talked about actually, we've talked about for several years. Dane County Cities and Villages Association did a salary study recently to be able to compare surrounding cities or cities in Dane County, period. There are obviously villages as well, but comparing the cities and also spoke with the mayors of those cities, some of whom are actually doing increases as well. But the intent here, obviously, of this resolution is to bring us up to what amounts to, we haven't had an increase for mayor or for city council members in a decade, and the intent is to bring it up to what is just slightly below average for those cities that have part-time mayors.
I will say this just for clarity. So last year, Mary O'Connor put it in the 2025 operating budget, but she was going to propose it too, the same process the mayor just mentioned. But because of the timing of it, you have to have it approved by a certain date before the papers can be pulled, and we weren't.
Right.
We realized we didn't follow that, or we didn't know that.
Right.
Until we were getting ready to do it. Bill Cole said, no, you can't do it. Right. So it actually is in the approved 2025 budget, I mean, as far as the numbers of dollars.
Right.
So when you look at the 2026, there's not going to be an increase for that.
Right, right.
It's just-
And again, this doesn't apply to any of us that are currently elected. It only applies for those people that are newly elected.
Right.
Would you like to make a motion, or any other questions? Or questions?
No, well, my only comment would be that since, we did this in 2015 and everybody said, oh, yeah, we should try to keep this more current,
Yeah,
and then we didn't, of course.
right.
So,
And-
I'm saying, if anything, maybe we should overshoot what inflation would say, because it's more than likely it's not going to get raised again.
Well, then the other thing, and that Neil and I talked about, and because it's something that one of the other mayors brought up in our conversations, was she said, go ahead and increase it and then tie it to, CPI. And then you don't have to do it again.
I think I remember talking about that as a possibility the last time, and we didn't. Yeah, if you
Right.
do that, that kind of makes sense.
It does kind of make sense, except for the fact that we don't do that for anything else. I mean, we don't do that for other staff positions, as an example, or other compensation.
Right, but there's not, we can just change that. We don't have to, you know, we don't have to go through a process.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's,
One of the, yeah. Anyway, I'm glad to see you brought it forward.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
You know, because 10 years is a long time.
long time, yeah.
And just add a couple of comments, Mayor. Certainly, you know, I think one thing the DCCVA survey was looking at in terms, I know you had conversations with the other mayors, was
Yes.
certainly the time commitment associated with the positions. Certainly not only in meeting hours, but other activities outside of just your official meeting duties.
Right.
Certainly I think in both your cases, the other organizations you're involved in or other committees you're involved in, whether with the county or with other organizations, it adds up pretty quick in terms of some of the commitments on those things. And I do think certainly, I mean, I think it would be perfectly reasonable to do, even if it was considered the same as you would consider for staff wages, in terms of even tying it to that, in terms of you are technically could view yourselves as employees, and you could have that same review done at the same time as well as we do for other employees, if that was the desire of this body to do that. That would certainly give you some
Yeah.
flexibility in terms of looking at it.
And I did try to reach back out to the mayors after I spoke to them initially and tried to get more specific estimates from them of how many, you know, how many committees, how many hours,
Right.
whether or not the alders and those other places were serving the whole, you know, community or just a district.
Right.
And to try to get comparisons of apples to apples. And unfortunately, I didn't get a whole lot of that information back.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, when I did bring it up at the mayor's meeting, and I mentioned that our alders chair or co-chair for committees on top of the city council, people's eyes kind of popped out of their head. So I would say that that was a surprise. But, you know, the flip side of that coin is we all know that some committees are a heavier lift than others in terms of the time commitment as well as the expertise. So anyway, I think, you know, we don't exactly have the info. So,
I just would want to add to
Yeah.
Mayor, and certainly in terms of, obviously, you know, in apples to apples, and certainly, you know, we are surrounded by the largest community in the county, which
Mhm.
presents a certain different kind of level of issues, even though population-wise, we may only be 9,000 people. There are larger issues that we deal with that I would even say some of the larger communities that aren't
Right.
immediately next to Madison have to deal with. That's certainly one thing. And I do think that, you know, this does still just bring it, this is even below, is still below what we are estimating to be the average for elected officials throughout, at least for the fellow cities. So
Right.
it is a
Yeah.
pretty minimal increase in that context, I would say.
well, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, I thought about tying it to CPI, and then we wouldn't have to, you know, post this, because then at least it would stay. I mean, like, for instance, I did get the numbers, the estimates from Madison. And while their city council members obviously only serve districts, the number of hours, and obviously they have the highest by far, the highest compensation, and the number of hours that the city council members put in their estimate was a lot higher than our estimate. So, I mean, a lot higher.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, it's not an exact science, is my
That's for
point.
sure. Yeah.
You know, even internally, so,
Okay.
anyway.
You want a motion?
Sure,
I'll move to approve.
okay, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. That takes us to G, acceptance of the general fund accounts payable checks dated October 17, 30, 2025. Documentation of invoices, Mark?
Yeah, not a whole bunch, but just a couple things. Page 48, GEC, September building, only 5,700. They'll be starting to get busy here again with tear down at River Place, General Code. So that's our codification. So we've done a lot of ordinance changes, and they have to update them in our books. This is an abnormal year, but once we do, any ordinance changes goes to them, and they put it into our system, our book. Next page, page 49, HD Perchborn Plumbing. Just various things they're working on. Again, the shelter repairs, maintenance agreement with the community center. Let's see here. Page 54, Edrodrama, at the very top for $5,099. That is a drone. Fire department. Page 57.
Wait, before you go on, right below that, there's a bat phone.
Yeah, it's for dispatch. I'm not for sure exactly what it is.
Bat phone.
That's what it says.
Do you know why they
Yeah.
call it bat phone?
It is for dispatch, though.
Yeah.
It's for dispatch. I don't know.
I'm assuming it's an acronym of some sort.
Yeah,
Like battery.
Private telephone they're used from.
Let me see.
but we can get the, yeah. So. Page 57, Payne and Dolan, does a lot of our street maintenance work. Finishing up there. Oh, page 56, Madison Metro Sewers District, third quarter, $275,000. It's actually right on target. We're at 75% of our budget through the first 3 quarters, so what we budgeted, so that is right on target. That's all I have.
It says a bat phone. It's a private telephone number for important telephone calls handled on high priority. And as it relates to public safety, this is, the AI overview says, for public safety can refer to a secure direct hotline. So
Okay.
they're talking about a secure line. Okay. Acceptance.
I will move to accept the
I will
accounts
second.
payable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are moved. Any staff updates?
I do not.
No. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.